So, review of the 1972 album All the Young Dudes by Mott the Hoople. Now, following Brain Capers in 71, Mott changed producers. They got rid of Guy Stevens and they brought in the infamous David Bowie, and it certainly made an impact. The studio saw the band work much harder. There was a tighter sound. They had to do more than just spew out gig-like music, and there was a collection of songs that certainly were pretty impressive. In terms of personnel, the organ player Vernon Allen was less used on this set of songs, it has to be said, and there was also a number of covers, including the Lou Reed written Sweet Jane, of course the title track, which was a donation by David Bowie, which became a mega single, and then towards the end, Ready for Love, which was later made into a big hit by Bad Company, and of course the common denominator there was Mick Rouse on guitar. So I'm going to go through the tracks now with some sort of observations to gather up this review. So their fifth album, it kicks off with Sweet Jane, as I said, written by Lou Reed. It's a pretty solid version of this song. Hunter does a pretty good job on vocals. He hasn't quite got the stunning impact that Lou Reed had, but his vocals are still pretty throaty and impactful, and there's some nice guitar from Rolfs on it as well, and it clocks in at just over 4 minutes. Excellent start. Mama's Little Jewel is track 2, and it sort of starts off and reminded me of some of the intros on Hunky Dory, and after a brief intro it stops and Hunter sort of talking to Bowie suggests that they restart it again, but I don't know whether this is just for effect, but it then continues and the rhythm is, well, very Bowie-esque, has to be said. So this track, track 2 on the album, it's got a sort of a nice sort of rhythmic rock beat. You sense there's a little bit of glam on the periphery of it, and there's a little bit of slide guitar that filters in, and some neat piano runs by Hunter, which hints at sort of a barroom atmosphere. Overall, a pretty nice, gentle sort of track 2 to go with the excellent opener. There's some really throaty horns on the outro, and then it sort of seems to segue in immediately to the opening guitar run for All the Young Dudes. Well, this track, of course, written by David Bowie, was a huge hit and lifted Mott the Hoople from the sort of gig scene to a band to be noticed. It was their major breakthrough, and it's a fantastic piece of music, and I'm going to have a little look at the lyric. So All the Young Dudes, very much a signature for the glam rock revolution, and an absolutely essential listen, really, when it comes to anything connected with Mott the Hoople, Ian Hunter, David Bowie, and Roxy Music, all those sort of glam rock stars of the 70s. And I'm going to go through now an excerpt from the lyric, and let's get started. Well, Billy rapped all night about his suicide, how he'd kick it in the head when he was 25. Speed jive, don't want to stay alive when you're 25. And Wendy's stealing clothes from Marks and Sparks, and Freddie's got spots from ripping off the stars from his face. Funky little boat race. Television man is crazy, saying we're juvenile delinquent wrecks. Oh man, I need TV when I've got T-Rex. Oh brother, you guessed, I'm a dude dad. The chorus. All the young dudes, hey dudes, carry the news, where are you? Boogaloo dudes, stand up, come on, carry the news. All the young dudes, I want to hear you. Carry the news, I want to see you. Boogaloo dudes, I want to talk to you. All of you, carry the news. Now, verse 2. Now Lucy looks sweet because he dresses like a queen. But he can kick like a mule, it's a real mean team. But we can love, oh yes we can love, and my brother's back at home with his Beatles and his Stones. We never got it off on that revolution stuff. What a drag, too many snags. Now I've drunk a lot of wine and I'm feeling fine. Got to race some eat to bed. I've got to race some cat to bed. Oh, is that concrete all round? Or is it in my head? Yeah, I'm a dude dad. Well, you can gather from the lyric, it's fingerprints of Badawi all over it, but it's really the issues being too old at 25 to live on, the cross-dressing, the sort of bisexual image that was very much David Bowie in the mid-70s, early 70s, and then a sort of a trick of the era, the role of the delinquents, and the introduction of escapism via dressing up, glam rock, T-Rex, and Mark Bolan. And it's all in there really, and it's absolutely brilliant. Sucker is up next. It's got a sort of lazy, sleazy, sort of slow, almost bluesy feel to it, and you catch some of the horns, and there is a credit for Bowie playing sax on the album, so this possibly is him. Hunter's in good form, slopping around on vocals, and it's got a sort of eerie phase as well to it. Probably a touch too long, but it was recorded live at the Hammersmith Odeon, so maybe there ain't no Bowie, but there's definitely a touch of horn. I think it may have been added on. It's not produced by Bowie, that's for certain. Sorry, correction, on the bonus album there's a live version of this, but this version that I'm reviewing is the studio version, credited to Ralphs and Watts alongside Hunter. There's once again back in the mix some sort of smoky sax work, and reading the lyric, I may be wrong on this, but it seemed to be a sort of a lyric that's very much about sex and how the male sort of not abuses his partner, his girlfriend, but certainly uses her, and that would encapsulate why it's called Sucker. There's some metaphors littered around. So, Jerkin's Crocus, the lyric isn't up to much, and it sounds, well, it starts off and you think it's Brown Sugar, and it follows a similar pattern. There's some decent enough guitar. It's a standard rock song. Hunter's in his element, but you know, it's ten a penny really, to be perfectly frank, and that seals out side one. One of the boys picks it up, starts up side two, and it's a rocker. It's got a fair amount of energy, I must admit. Very typical of Mott the hoople. Starts off quietly, and then once they turn on the drums and bass, we're into some slightly heavy rock guitar and raucous Hunter vocals. It's all pretty middle of the road, but I like it. It's a worth a listen, put it that way. And the song has some Bowie sound effects at the beginning, at the end of the track. There's a dialing tone. One at the end is more modern than the one at the beginning. Soft Grounds next. Hunter rests his vocal cords for this one, with Verdon Allen, the keyboard player, taking lead vocals. It doesn't really do a lot, to be honest. It's standard rock sound, which is brief, which is probably to your benefit really. Just clocking in at 3 minutes 17, and that's about sums it up. So to Ready for Love After Lights, where Mick Rolfe's on lead vocals, and as I say, when he left, he took this with him, and Bad Company made a more rockier version of it. This one's tidy enough, but the vocals are very weak, and it's a standard rock tune really. Nothing to sort of nothing in comparison really to the title tracks. The title track stands out on this, but it's a tidy enough effort. But Bad Company's version, of course, was a big hit, and I think the Paul Rodgers vocal was so superior to the Mick Rolfe's vocal. We didn't really hear any Rolfe's singing with Bad Company, and in many ways, although he wrote this song, he would have been better advised to give the vocal duties to Hunter. Towards the back end, Ralph opens his shoulders a bit, but I did find the mix a bit strange really. The rhythm guitar melody seems to be higher in the mix than the lead guitar, so to an extent the lead is lost a little bit, but that's my observation anyway. But it's a tidy enough rock song. Sea Diver closes. It's a sort of ballad with Hunter commanding on piano and lead vocals, and there's some brass arrangements with strings courtesy of Mick Ronson. Yeah, that guy. I wonder why he was brought in. Well, we know why, because his mate was in the production room. But it's very nice indeed. A very nice end to this album. Although overall, it really is a question of 3 tracks that stand out: the opener, the title track, and this one tapped on the end. But they were moving in the right direction. That's certainly true of this Mott the Hoople album called All the Young Dudes from 1972. Tried to decipher the lyric to Sea Diver. It seems to be a love that's turned the other way, and a need to sort of escape the iron veil. It's quite melancholic, really. But just a point of correction, I said earlier that there was some slide guitar on, and let me just check it again. There's some slide guitar on Mama's Little Jill. No, that's not correct. I read the WikiLeaks wrong. The slide guitar was on the bonus track, number 2. There ain't no slide guitar on Mummy's Little Jill. So anyway, that's my audio review of All the Young Dudes. So, Prologue by Renaissance, released in 1972. Their style is symphonic rock, prog rock. 6 tracks on this album. Title track opens up. Kiev is track 2. Sounds of the Sea is 3. Spare Some Love is track 4. Bound for Infinity is track 5. And then the lengthy Raja Khan is the final track. First album by this band in the 70s. Annie Haslam's Renaissance. More hard rock sounds with increasing psychedelia, heavy guitar sound, which wasn't one of their what we would remember them as, and soaring vocals from Annie Haslam, some piano. Kiev it's sang by the other members of the band, which is quite a surprise. Ethereal flowing lyrical sounds of the sea. It's most like their previous work. Spare Some Love with prominent folky acoustic guitars, and so we're going to go through it and probably refer to this review again, but we're going to hit the tracks now, and I've never heard this album before. So, fast-paced rhythm with the piano driving it, and then the harmonies come in, and it sounds like it could be on a Fifth Dimension album, with the sort of pop soul type theme. There's a spectacular high-range thrill from Haslam. And then it goes into what could only be described as jazz prog rock, with some excellent piano and pretty fierce drum bass combo. It really is at a ferocious pace as well. The beat is almost a percussive samba Latin feel to it, going along with these jazz tones. Midway through, the track develops almost a sort of classical Bach-like, that's Johann Sebastian, by the way, feel to it, reminiscent of how Anderson evolves some of Tull's tracks to have a classical feel to them, and then it rushes to the finish with extreme shrill tones by Haslam, but it's a very impressive start. So this lineup for this album retained Annie Haslam, singer, and the keyboard player John Tout, but then added the bassist John Camp, drummer Terry Sullivan, and guitarist Mike Parsons, but unfortunately Parsons died in a car accident, and Rob Hendry had to step in to do the recording sessions in July '72, and after it was completed he left. So it's quite a radical change for them, really. Although the songs were originals, none of the players actually wrote the songs. Former members Jim McCarty from the first lineup and Michael Dunford, who played with the Nashville Teens with the transitional lineup, and Betty Thatcher, the lyricist, put together the track list, and so that's how we have it. Just having a quick look, confirming that, and it's the band's third album. Did I catch that correctly? Third album. Yeah, third studio album. So that's dealt with a little bit more of the details. That second track, Kiev, was very pleasant indeed, and had a lot of classical overtones, I felt, and I'm enjoying the album. Enjoying it. The vocals were by John Camp, stepping in for Annie Haslam, who usually predominates on vocals, and the production was handled by one Miles Copeland. Half a minute in, Haslam's soaring high tones add atmosphere to an intro piano and the sound of seagulls. Yes, we certainly are at the seaside, but it's atmospheric and very pleasant. So we get about 5 minutes of this. It's all very pretty, conjures up these images of being by the sea, and then the piano slowly fades out with the Haslam's soaring lyrics, soaring voice slowly getting quieter and quieter. Spare Some Love follows a similar sort of pattern, skippy rhythms, nice gentle piano chimes, and Haslam's vocals that's pretty, to say the least. And then there's a bridge which leads to a little bit more of complex sort of jazz sort of influences, but it's getting a little bit samey. There's a sort of there's very much a sort of choral feel to the enchanting voicing, particularly if when she's got some of the harmonies behind her. But as I say, it's become pretty samey, and now we're moving on to the next track, which is called Bound for Infinity. Just relatively short track for 4 minutes, opening with more sort of a classically influenced piano. Once again, Bound for Infinity, beautifully played, lovely vocal presentation. It's faultless, but it just doesn't move me that much. It's becoming predictable. Let's see what the last. This has got elements of Eastern raga, so I heard. It's called Raja Khan. After a lengthy sort of prog style intro, we then get the rhythm, and I thought I heard a tinge of sitar, and then Haslam starts wailing like she's in some religious theatre, a mosque or a synagogue, or maybe a Hindu temple, but there's certainly elements of that. It's pleasant. A few minutes in, we then get the synthesised solo by one Francis Monkman, a name that rings a bell. I think he was with Curved Air for some. I wouldn't swear to that, but he was a proficient keyboard man anyway. And anyway, he's indulging himself on this particular track with a lengthy solo. As it approaches the finale, the last couple of minutes, after another period of wailing, progressive Eastern flavours, they jump into a sort of piano-led, sort of frantic ELP style prog to help them on that way. It's amazing how this style of music, which 50 years ago sort of enabled my ears to prick up instantly, and I would sort of wallow in it, sort of self-indulgence really, whereas now it leaves me relatively cold and emotionless. And then we get that final push as the Eastern raga returns, as we sort of say goodnight.